Okay, everybody, hello, and this is Tom Geisler, and this is Discovering Autism, and I've got a repeat guest here. It's Jerri Atkins, and say hello, Jerri.
Hello to the village and to you. Happy Easter, everybody.
Yes, this is Easter Day, Easter Sunday by
It's
chance.
beautiful.
And where are you at? Just so you can tell people what is beautiful and where is
I
beautiful.
am right smack in the middle of South Carolina in the southeastern United States.
And let's see, is it rhododendron or what was it that is is that South Carolina or one of the I remember we used to drive down to Florida and there was a season for I think it was the rhododendron in the mountains or at least on the path
Well, I'm in the flatlands.
you're in the flatlands. Okay.
Yeah, they
Well,
call it the Midlands.
the Midlands. Okay.
We're covered up in pollen currently.
Okay. Really bad. Huh?
Everything's yellow.
Everything's yellow. Oh, you should send a picture. I'll include it in on the on the broadcast here. Well, Jerri and I were talking. I think it was just yesterday or the day before.
Day before.
Day before on Messenger, and this was what prompted us saying we need to do this on a program here. And she wrote this, and I have not read through it well enough to probably do this without an error or two. But she had said, "I think it is time in a lot of our lives for us to finally experience living on this planet on our terms." And then we're talking NT or neurodiverse versus neurotypical here. Okay. It says, I feel as if the bulk of my time here was wasted on a lot of levels. And now, if I can pull myself together, and she has in parentheses, this is harder to do for those of us who are just now learning who we really are, I want to discover everything that I put aside for so many years. It's rather frightening to let go of the masks and the reins of the train wreck that we have all learned to call life, and strike out in a direction our hearts and brains bid us to go. But oh, what a wonderful opportunity, yes? And that is sort of the beginning of the show here, and what's going to set our topics. Wow. Jerri, by the way, too, is very eloquent. She has written some things that are just so they're just very expressionate, very well worded, and to the point. And that's one of them. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Thomas.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think we all have our moments of lucidity, and when we have just a quiet time away from the neurotypical ship that bucks and rolls every day, then we can sit down and have a complete thought and dream of a world that's created that we can exist in happily without having to work so hard at it every day.
This is, I think, one of the great points is going to be of this program, and I want to also start off that this is not something to an attack on people who are neurotypical. This is
this is just the ringing the bell, saying, okay, people, we now know that none of us is being necessarily punished for a past life. There are others. We have people who understand us and who have the same needs as we do. And so we need to actually create our own narrow bandwidth that will supply our needs as the different type of neurological computers that we are, so that we can happily thrive and function as the neurotypical majority has for all these hundreds of years.
Yeah. And this is what I find this fascinating too, Jerri, because I don't think we've ever really talked about this specifically in detail like we're doing right now. And yet I can tell you are right. I mean, we could probably almost use the same words when we talk about this. And there's this is, and I'm only a year and 2 months in after diagnosis now, so I'm no expert in anything, but it's just a gut feeling. The more I, the more I see the differences between how my life really does function and how the neurotypical society functions. And and my background is I've worked since basically when I was about 18 or 19. I became very involved with the deaf community, and I mean to the point where almost losing my my personal identity as being a hearing person in that community. I mean, I was like going to all the social functions. I was a part. I mean, people knew me. You know, I mean, they probably knew me as the the weird hearing guy, but it was, I found something there that was important to me. And I'm seeing now that I think a lot of it was related to the neurodiversity. But in that time, I've worked ever since then. I've worked deaf, blind, developmentally disabled. And a common thing I see in as a reaction or a perception from the society at large, and that's really what I'm calling the neurotypical community, is that we really can't expect people to in their lives to focus on every variation and every special need of a person that's out there in the world, and that we really need to I think we need to present our autism for our needs in a way that they see us not as neurotypical with added autism, but that we are actually neurologically different. We have different needs. We've got to establish that base for them to be able to, because what we're going to be asking them for is special hours for work, special environments, and those are things that will be incompatible with their needs.
Exactly. So
that we've got to understand what we're presenting to society is, look, we have a lot to offer. Your system isn't supporting our needs. We need to develop a system that is going to. And I think our community needs to realize that, and we need, and their community needs to realize that. And that's where I think that's our best start, that's our best platform to really go beyond autism awareness to an autism, what I'm calling appreciation.
And inclusion.
Inclusion, definitely.
So that we can provide not only, I feel like there's just been so much waste of mental acuity across the board as far as anyone, whether they be diabetic or deaf or autistic. There's been it's like we're throwaways. So any contributions we could have made to society up until this time, we've been stifled, we've been not really allowed to participate and bring our greatest gifts to the table, because we've been trying to keep up with appearances and the masks and remember the silly rules that they just know when they're born and they live by. And it's so frustrating. I think that what we need by way of support is going to have to be set up by us.
Perfectly. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm reading a book by Ian Ford, who did A Field Guide to Earthlings, I think it is.
Yeah.
And
is it good?
Yes, I would recommend you read it. I think you would get a lot out of it. And I'm just going to I've only gone through like the first couple chapters and he basically breaks it down into, I think he's got different patterns of behavior. And I'm on the first like 2 chapters, and he's gone through maybe 8 of those. But they're so rich in information that I'm thinking about them. That's the first chapter I thought about for a week. That's only like 10 pages. But basically the way he's laying it out, and of course you could probably break it down and think about it in any way you wanted to, but he's breaking it down into that neurotypical people are extremely symbolic. And whereas neurodiverse people are very present. We are absorbing everything. It's sort of a first time every time. And then if you're neurotypical, let's use Easter, since it's Easter today. It's a tradition. you go to a certain person's house, you visit them, and you bring the flowers, you give the kids the candy, you do the Easter egg hunt, and these are all symbols that they confirm a social bond, they confirm a shared ritual. I mean, it's those kind of things. Instead of, hey,
Yes.
let's go have fun and let's eat a bunch of chocolate bunnies, and it's almost like we're in a kid's view in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And then that maturity that they achieve is through sort of reducing their world to symbols so that they can function in that world at their best. And so that I just thought was fascinating because it does explain a lot. It explains a lot about us.
Yes, it does.
And so here we were, since birth, practically, trying to fit into that system.
That gives us no happy hits and no reinforcements and no validation over and over and over again. And I think that a neurodiverse person trying to not only stay above the waterline in the neurotypical societies of the world, we're expending a lot of energy just trying to keep up with that. And I lost that train of thought, Thomas. I looked at my cat and
No, I think what you were saying is that is that so much energy we put into just coping, that trying to be neurotypical, not knowing that we're neurodiverse. I mean, it's the whole confusion of trying to live that way, and the energy we put out when we can't even focus on developing ourselves and knowing ourselves.
Yeah, and we're as a tribe, everybody. And I notice, I see these patterns. We're like moths to our village. We connect when we're feeling good, and then somebody will disappear for a couple of days. But it's because we're all fighting a daily battle, energy-wise, mentally, to just survive in the setup that we have now. And it needs to change. We throw away I feel like we've thrown away the first 3/4 of our lives for those of us who are just now finding out.
I know what you're saying, and I try to look at it as this is why I'm doing these interviews. This is why I've been writing on Quora. This is why I've been trying to. I remember a distinct moment. I was sitting at work, and it just sort of hit me. It's like just what you're saying. I'm 59 years old now. Now I find this out. When I needed this 58 years ago, and yet something inside of us has been telling us all along. Yeah.
And we put up a fight. We put up a fight when we were 5, and we said, no, I don't want to go to kindergarten. It smells in there, and the children are so loud, and the echoes, and I don't like throwing up in front of classmates, and because I'm dizzy. We did put up fights, but we were made to comply and to get along and to buck up and to quit sniffling and be like your brother, be like your sister. Well, don't do that. And it's hard when you finally look at the word autistic and then you start reading stuff and then you, magic of greatest magic, find somebody like I found you and Carol in a village full of people who are just like us.
Yeah. I'm going to go back to experiences as kids, because I think this is real important for NT parents to think about, and that is, I have one of my real vivid memories of Chris. I was born in Texas, and we moved up to Ohio, and their school systems were different. I was born beginning of September, which is right at the beginning of the school year, so that if I started at my age appropriate time, I was like the youngest person in the class always, because I just turned that. And in Texas, they did not have preschool. So I went from a state that didn't have preschool and I'm not sure if they started, if they had, I'm not sure even how the Texas system works then, but so I didn't have my preschool, and I was in first grade, basically almost a year early. I mean, or
wow.
So that, and I didn't have reading skills, and now I find I'm dyslexic, which is probably why I didn't have the reading skills. I remember Mom trying to work with me, but I was more of a picture pointing kind of person, and had been all a long time. Still am in a lot of ways, I guess. But and I bring all these things up because it's so important, I think, for when we talk about fish being out of water. We're like, when we're in a neurotypical society, we've got all these little things that people innocently, it's just the way their system works, is that, oh, you're having trouble doing this, we'll do that. Or if we think it's you're acting out of place, we'll give you a warning, and then we'll put you in the corner. And I just remember, I remember things like, I used to go off to the bathroom in first grade, and just sit in the bathroom, and actually they would laugh at me because I would be singing. It was my way to get away. I had to get away from it all, and of course they see that as, oh, Tom, he's just being a little kid and having fun singing in the bathroom, where they don't see that there was a reason behind it.
Exactly, you are blocking out what you can't take.
Yeah.
Grade school was from a sensory standpoint is like going from being a shielded child in a monastery somewhere and not being able to speak 6 out of 7, but communicating just fine with your quiet world, and then they throw you into kindergarten or first grade, and it is like being in a coliseum in Rome, and there's every manner of activity, noise, smells coming at you from all directions.
Including
now do sit down and be quiet and act like the rest of the children.
Yeah. And of course, we don't have the words, we don't have the experience, we don't have the insights or the self-understanding. I mean, how can a 5-year-old say, oh, of course, it's because I'm neurodiverse, Yeah. I mean, and so you just kind of go, okay. And to me, I had a narcissistic or very popular narcissistic father that also put the twist on this, was that there was like a very unforgiving discipline, so that everything I did at home, of course, I felt that same transfer. I mean, I literally remember feeling so disconnected. Just sort of losing the thought.
Just because you're simply existing. It's like being a dandelion in a rose world.
Yeah. And it was just it just really, really affected me, to where I started just basically, because like you were saying, you try to, you kind of raise your hand and go, help, and you don't know how to even ask for help, and then people go, okay, you're fine, just go on and do it this way, do it that way. And pretty soon I became so complacent and unfocused on my needs, because it's like, okay, then I need to focus on all this stuff, that I think that's one of the great revelations of just a year ago, finding out neurodiverse, was that I feel like I can finally be myself.
Yeah.
Finally. Yeah. I mean, I don't think people.
Because as children, when we tried to be ourselves, that was hushed, and we were redirected.
Yep.
Constantly redirected away from what was normal and natural for us.
Well, and kids and as adults. I mean, really, it doesn't stop. It never stops.
No, it doesn't.
That's what we're talking about, being neurodiverse in a neurotypical society, is that all those, and this I've written about this on Quora, was that, and it's just an analogy, I think it's that, thought, come back. The analogy was that comparison. I was going to say that for neurotypicals to understand that better, which it just kind of zooped.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice weather there. Let's talk about North Carolina again. No, just kidding. You're South Carolina. Never mind. This is kind of a neurodiverse thing that's happening to me right now.
It is. And I'm still trying to block out enough to be able to concentrate on a phone voice because talking on the phone is very difficult for me.
Yeah, and these are all... And
It's the same sensory thing, though, that I had with school and everything else and work and all my life.
oh,
I can't go to the ballet. I can't,
wow.
Some of these things are geared towards people who can stand withering amounts of lights and flashes and sounds and smells and people.
Yes.
The older I get, the closer I get to being a hermit. And I've always wanted to be a hermit. That was not something that a 5-year-old child in the South could decide for herself, unfortunately. So I was made to go to school and participate.
Yeah.
And now I feel like, okay, I gave it up. I quit. I walked away. I said, okay, whatever time I have left, I'm going to be me. Now, where am I and who am I?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it's almost like when you rediscover, when you finally say, okay, it's not a label. No, it's an explanation of why I have had to struggle for this many years. This explains it.
And
and it's such a freeing thing, but you're at a loss too.
Yeah.
It's not like a neurotypical. You couldn't throw that kind of big hard ball at them and have them not have the deer in the headlights look as well.
Yeah.
But that's a lot to your whole life. You've been trying so hard to be an antelope, and then you find out you're a rhinoceros.
And you forget that you forget what it is to. I mean, it's not like all of a sudden you can go, oh, okay, well, I'll just be the rhinoceros. It is you have forgotten how to be a rhinoceros.
Rhinoceros.
Yes.
Yeah, nobody ever allowed you to be a rhinoceros. If you were going to be a rhinoceros, you better be in your room with your door closed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even then, you're probably a rhinoceros with guilt and shame.
Yes.
I mean, on top of that. And I think this is this to try to give neurotypical people that perspective, and that is that, I had no reason to doubt that I was neurotypical. I mean, there's nothing around you to go. I mean, I shouldn't
not
say that.
Not one voice.
Yeah, there's no one voice. There's nothing.
Hey, wait.
Right.
What if?
Yes, and our age too was that autism. I mean, kids now have grown up around it. They know somebody who's autistic probably in their class or in their school at least. Or at least have seen it on TV or whatever. And back when we were kids, I never heard of the word autism. And I was surprised. This is something I don't have the exact dates, but when autism was in the DSM-3, I think it is, I don't think it wasn't called autism. I think it was under PDD, NOS. What's the PDD? Developmental delay, something developmental delay.
Okay, a specific disorder.
Yes, but anyway, it was autism was underneath something. It wasn't. I don't think it was as its own anything.
It was under an umbrella term.
Yes, and about the time that they finally brought it out, and as we know it today, and I'm losing all my terminology here, but that was about a year, I think, or two before the movie Rain Man came out, which was like late 80s, I think. And I was surprised because, I think I actually went and saw that when it came out, and it was like, okay, and I saw it as sort of the movie about the disabled kid or the disabled adult, and I didn't even, maybe I had heard of autism. It wasn't like a shocking term to me. I had heard it, I guess. But that's all the longer that's really been out in the public as especially in the neurotypical or in people that would have had no connection with autism. That was the first
exposure that they had.
Yes, yeah. And so here we were.
And it's a very small slice of the spectrum.
Oh my gosh. that's the unfortunate thing about Hollywood is they pick up on some dramatic or whatever character, and they don't think about the impact a lot of times of what the movie itself will do as far as awareness. And unfortunately, that's kind of stuck. Is that everybody's like Rain Man, And I was like that myself. I was like that myself. The moment before I started researching Asperger's, I thought, it's kids that are like this,
Right. They're brilliant. They're misunderstood, but I don't have that kind of skill.
Yeah, or those behaviors or those traits. The lady at work, who's this is where I really got the notion that I could have been on the spectrum. She talked about her son and what they were doing for intervention, and it all sounded really. For some reason, it was just. It made a connection. And but when I really looked, I even asked her. I said, "Is it possible that I could be? We have Asperger's," because she was talking about his Asperger's, and I don't remember her reaction being like, "Oh, what are you, crazy?" It was like, and I kind of went, and that's the last I thought of it, because I thought, but I know I'm not like him, so that means I can't have Asperger's.
Yeah, even our own, since the knowledge has been so slow in getting out, even those of us who are on the spectrum didn't recognize ourselves,
right,
and didn't have any way to, any allies.
Yeah.
There's no way to question the system without being told not to question the system. Get in the box.
Yeah.
Everybody gets a box. Get in the box. And it's frightening. We as a tribe, I think we all need to go somewhere to a little hut where it's quiet and have our system defragged. I feel like a computer that I've had so many windows open for all my life. They've all been tuned to the wrong channel anyway. And I need to get a grip on, okay, now I'm going to let go of these masks that I've been relying on all my life. And it's a scary place to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, it is. I'm just thinking as you were talking about this, because I don't feel like I really succeeded in career. I did a lot of things. I've got through. I've been independent, but I don't feel like I have excelled, or if I had found my niche and I think I had focused my capabilities on it, I think I would probably be top.
You could have made a broad mark.
Yes, I really, and I half reluctantly say that, but I'm starting to really embrace the fact of that I've got some amazing skills. I don't know exactly what they are yet, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm still finding that out, but it's just...
we weren't allowed to follow that intuition and that our genetic path.
No. And that's...
We've been denied that, and now here we are. We've got our this human form that we were issued at birth is covering up and making us look like the natives, but really not like them. And we've got to all come together, kind of shake off and get our sea legs, for lack of a better term right this second, and figure out a way to support not only ourselves, but the ones coming behind us.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, just so well put. Because that is a first step, and I actually started a meetup group here locally called First Step. I can't remember the rest of it. Bringing our community together, or something like that. And it was and I've got like 13 people in the last couple of weeks that have joined in. But some of them are parents with kids that they are not autistic, but their kids are, and they're of the transition age out of school, and they're bored, and so they're trying to think, what are my kids going to do socially? So there's all these different segments of our community that need to be developed, and we've got our section, which is the late diagnosed, and even those who had been diagnosed for 20, 30 years. It's a monstrous. I mean, it's this whole spectrum that is fragmented. And it really is time that we all, in every way that we can, reach out and make connections with other people in our community and start to, like you're saying, we we need to know ourselves before we can even go out into the neurotypical society and say, this is what we need. We need to know what we need.
Exactly.
And because we haven't even thought really through, like, okay, I've always wanted, this would be, I think, a beautiful book I wish somebody would write on a fictional level, which is, I call it Planet Autistica, where everybody is autistic. And what would a day be in Autistica? Do people work an 8 to 11? Do they work shifts, or do they work when they can? When they get up, literally, it's a 24-hour day for them, because I'm going to sleep for 3 hours. Then I'm going to have energy. I'm going to work for 3. I'm going to do what I need to get away from it all and wind down, and then come back and work another 3. So on an average, I work maybe 6 to 8 hours a day, but that's 7 days a week. So that it looks like it's being unproductive to a neurotypical person, and they might not be able to even tolerate something like that. They probably couldn't.
No, I don't think so.
So that's what Planet Artistica would look like. And then you go through architecture and music and communication and every aspect of society. And how would it be if it was neurodiverse? I think it'd be a fascinating book to write, just to think it through as a person, but also as a tool for neurodiverse and neurotypical to sort of bridge that gap of disconnect.
And have an understanding, at least.
Yeah. Are you worn out?
We need to clone you.
Oh,
that's what we need to do. Send a Thomas Geisler to every nation.
Oh, geez, don't say that. I'm going to sort of back up, because I remember another thought that kind of got fragmented there, was that I never really felt like I developed a career, and I'm sort of understanding something right now as we're talking, and that is because I think part of me, I would go so far and I'd go, I can't do this. I'm in that position right now in the work I'm in. I am like fed up to my eyeballs, and I need something different. I'm almost like emphasizing all the negative. And I can't, there's a lot of negative in this job, I hate to say, but it's just like, okay, I'm done. I'm literally to the point of almost walking and saying, bye, nope, no 2 weeks, let me collect my stuff, have a nice life, I'm out of here. That's about but I've got a job that looks like it's coming up here. I'm like, come on, job, come on. It's, they're expanding and they need to expand. And I said, okay, when we do, you're in.
That's great.
I
can't
hope
wait.
So. I know. I think it could be a blessing, which is another interesting thing is ever since diagnosis, ever since discovery, which is really where it all began, life has done 180 for me. Internally, personally, attitude, hope, those kind
that
of
makes me so happy, because you've embraced it. I tell you what, you're as quick as a minute when it comes to that. You got your diagnosis, you did your research, you've been out there, and you're putting yourself out there, reeling in others who, just like yourself, never really identified with this, and then when it hits you, it's like, wow, no wonder I've been
well, maybe this
feeling so alone.
This might be this is what I was getting at too, is that there's all these things I did not do in my life. What has this given me? You were talking about needing to defrag and unwind and find some place that you can just be neurodiverse. I've been able to do that, Jerri, the last year ever since, because I live alone.
Wow.
My cat doesn't say stop that, so I can just do whatever I want to do. Well, I take that back.
Wonderful.
And so it is, and I'm seeing that. That has been a real gift. I will say this though. I wish I could be with people that were neurodiverse, because I'm still doing all this alone. I'm still reinventing the wheel.
And I think we all are. I feel like we're all in little bubbles all around the world.
Yes, exactly. Wow, it just takes my breath away. These are feelings. These are these are parts of ourselves that Jerri and I, and I'm this way I feel now. I don't want to speak for you, Jerri, but just us talking about this is healing. It's going back into thoughts and feelings that we've had all of our lives. That and this is just what we were talking about. It's this connection that we have with another neurodiverse person that opens us up as individuals, neurodiverse people, that we can't do by ourselves.
That's true.
That the community is critical to our own personal health and safety and well-being, and also as what we're going to become as a neurodiverse society.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that amazing to say?
It is. And every one of us is a thread into this new support system. Each time every one of us says something or writes something or reaches out to somebody, I feel like it gets stronger. We're right on the crest.
Yeah.
Sad to say, because it's almost 2020, and, this Asperger's was brought to light in the late 1940s.
Yeah, really.
And here we are, right at the beginning of the path.
Well, it's an amazing time. I've said this a lot in writing and talking with people that when I worked with the deaf community back when I first started, it was in the late 70s. Americans with Disability Act had passed, I think, in 73 or 74, somewhere around in there. So that was just starting to gain some sort of momentum, and of course it's always met with negatives, because like, why do those people need special anything, and
right.
But the deaf community was at that. The deaf community had the advantage of already being a really, really tight-knit community. So that literally, I'm just sort of a side story, but one of the lady, I went through the very first interpreters training class, one of the first in the nation. I was in the first class. And
wow.
The lady that had helped set it up, her name was Janet DeBecke, and she was hearing all from a deaf family, generations of deaf, and she was like the oddball. She was the hearing kid. And she was talking about, she told me the story. She said she had a brand new car. It caught fire in the parking garage. When she got home, and she hadn't told anybody. When she, at least I don't remember if she did, but she got home and somebody from California contacted her who was deaf and said, "I hear your car burned," and it just. I mean, this is back in the 70s, folks. This isn't,
wow.
This isn't an internet time, And so that's how tight-knit their community was. And they were able to, people won't remember this, but there's a college in Maryland. It's Gallaudet University, and it's an all-deaf college. Well, they had a hearing president. And they said, no, you don't have any clue what we need, what's going on, what this university needs, out of here. And they're like, what are you guys saying? You're just the students.
Wow.
They protested for I don't know how long, but it became a national thing for that whole community. It was a symbol for that whole community.
Spotlight on the movement.
Yes. And you started seeing things on television. You started seeing commercials. You started seeing Children of a Lesser God as a movie come out. You started seeing all these things start happening. And I'm seeing those kind of parallels now, but our community isn't together. If our community was together so that when either a bad piece of legislation or a bad piece of media, because they became a political force too, yes.
Yeah.
And that's what I think people in our community need to realize, and that's why we need to come together, is because that is how we're going to make change. We're not going to be, and I mean, it's just, that's the beginning of it, and that's where we're at, and that's what we need to develop.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Am I hogging this program? Am I speaking too much?
No.
No? Okay.
Never.
Sometimes.
You say the important things that need to be said and that need to be heard.
Well, thank you. I love you, Jerri.
No, I can't wait for our first family reunion.
Jerri has been, since day one, has been very supportive and always been very, very kind to me. and it's always been very helpful and encouraging me to move on. So just like she is right now, and I thank you, and I hope you realize how much you're contributing too, right? Like at this program, what you've said has been spot on, and people will glean just as much from what you're saying as what I'm saying.
Well, I hope so. It's definitely to have any connections. The internet has been such a blessing because you can see pictures of real people
Yeah.
that struggle just as you do and that have the same problems. And when we find these groups and make these connections, I don't think that a neurotypical jury of my peers would have any idea how special and how life-changing and life-affirming it is. I'm so glad that the deaf community has its tight-knit setup. We need to copy that. I wish we had it coming up. Because we don't have anything to fall back on.
An interesting thing
at this point,
their community actually started to sort of disintegrate, and I don't mean in a negative. I mean in actual, because that's all they had. The only form of communication they had, because they couldn't use a telephone unless they had a hearing person interpret, which was probably a poor interpretation. So it's basic in communication. But they had the old World War II teletype machines, or the old IBM, the big green box the ball typer that would sit there and go, that you'd see, and they started to use those in their homes. And of course, not everyone could have one. So they sort of like, everybody would like, oh, Joe's got a teletype. Well, I need to send a message to Sally and such and such. So there was just, by necessity, there was a need for each other. And as iPods and, I mean, you can't imagine how revolutionary it was to be able to hold something in your hand and to be able to sign to somebody around the world and use your native language. Well, that kind of broke those bonds of need that were in their community. So they kind of, that kind of fell apart.
So they've become more fractured.
Yes, yeah. Which is an interesting point that I've noticed over the years, because it was like everybody knew everyone. Everybody hung out together because they had what they called the Deaf Club. They'd have a central area in the city or two that where everybody would meet. That's where you socialize. That's where you got together. That's where you made plans, and because there was no other way to communicate.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, okay, we do this, and anyway.
And here we are, right at that same crest in the movement that all of the autistic people all over the world are crying out for.
Yeah. It is.
I've got blueprints in my head for like the Appalachian Village and the Rocky Mountain Village, and this is going to be real. It's got to be. At some point.
Yes.
Make a fabric that gives us the strength to go forward into the negativity that we're going to be met with at every level.
Yeah.
From national down to as rural.
Family. I mean, even down to the level of family.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's a I don't want to call it a battle, but it's going to be a struggle. We'll call it a struggle.
It feels like a battle every day.
Yeah. You too, Jerri. You have a lot more sensory struggle than I do. And I wonder. I try to think back of. I don't remember. I remember like sensitivity to smells, sensitivity, I guess to some degree sounds, but it wasn't to the point of meltdowns and shutdowns. But I also am not.
I'm glad for you.
Yeah, but I'm also wonder how, because the oppression in my life started probably before even the autistic traits are really being expressed. I mean, I think it was because that's just the way. It's just the way that my father was.
The environment that you're born into, and the energy that you're exposed to.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you've always had it, and I hate that you had your narcissistic experience as a child. Mine didn't come until I was 18, and then I was targeted. But sometimes I think we have, a beacon or something in our brains. We're everything that narcissists want people to believe they are, but we're it for real. We're empathetic. We're caring. We're intelligent, but we're not shaming. We're nurturing. We're welcoming. We're all the things that the world, the neurotypical society is set up to have as a symbol, and they want everybody to believe that symbol, but they don't. I don't know. They can't live that way. I just did another tangent.
No, that is. I'm just sitting here going, my mouth agape, going, absolutely, absolutely. That is just so right on. It's. I was going to say, when we were thinking about the narcissistic, and I think and another thing was trust. I mean, we see, and I think we see in narcissists what they're projecting as communicating and nice and trusting and all these hooks that they put out there to get the people they want in there. And of course, we're biting on every worm that they're putting out on those hooks. And so they're like, here's one, here's a sap, here's a sucker. And so they reel us in, and we sit there going,
our energy.
And we can't fathom. It's like, well, wait a second, this person shows all the signs of a person that understands. Why are they doing this then? And that's what I've been dealing with my dad all this time. It's like, why?
That's their mask, I guess. That's their tricky mask.
Yeah.
Our mask is our best foot forward. Of course, I'm like everybody else, and I'm a good member of society, and
Yeah, it's how we cope. It's not how we control. It's how we can help. It's how we try to. It's for our own. It's what we can do in lieu of developing our neurodiverse self. I mean, we don't know that we're not developing ourselves, but that's, I think, the confusing thing about masks. That was one of the hard things too about this process about debriefing or giving up the neurotypical lifestyle or life. A lot of times, and this, I've heard this said many times, it is a metamorphosis, because it's not like, because what we are when we start this process is not what we're becoming something completely different from the most basic.
A very young age.
We go back to our past. We start going, oh, that's why this stuff happened. That's just like we were talking today about school and things that happened, and you talk about something, and I'm going, oh gosh, that's right, I did that too. And it is. I'm surprised that some neurotypical psychologist isn't studying this, because I think that it would tell so much about psychology and life. And I mean, it's actually I don't know if you find this, in a sense, it's a very interesting experience to go through. It's a very learning.
Absolutely. It's a steep curve, though.
Yeah. No kidding.
It's kind of mind-bending.
Yes.
Because it's almost like we have finally seen that little slit in the matrix, and holy camole, you step through it, and there you are out in outer space. But there are little bubbles of people.
Yeah.
There's, I can see you.
Yeah.
Out here, and we've just got to build we've got to build the actual platform, and then design the support system, and we're going to have to, I don't know, flesh it out. I don't think neurotypical communities, professional or otherwise, or any of them have enough curiosity to do more than, and I'd be perfectly happy with a meet us 50% of the way. Just meet us halfway. Just say, okay, we're not going to punish the children that are like this anymore. We're gonna let you people who came through this teach them and guide them and set up the standards that they will be, treated with. They're still worthy of respect. And and let us build what we need, because our numbers are grossly low, what people are talking about. And I see more of it. The more I look at me and hear you talk and hear other people talk, then when I'm out there in the neurotypical world, I'm noticing more people at the edges of the room.
With what?
I'm noticing more children, more grown-ups, more elderly that are at the edges of the room when I go somewhere, when I'm out in the world.
That you think
you found a lot of people.
You mean that you think are specifically on the spectrum?
Yes, somewhere on the spectrum.
You know, without actually going up to a person saying, "Hey, are you on the spectrum?" I can only speculate but I think I'm starting to, as I know myself, as I finally know what it is to be a neurodiverse person, I can then start recognizing those characteristics more. See, I think that's one of the things I was trying to put into words earlier, was that I think I was so oppressed as a child and so shut down so much on my own self-awareness that I think I denied. This is a true example, is that I went from about the age of 9 to 20 with stomach ulcers, and I did not ever. I went through that period, never told a soul. I remember a number of nights myself with terrible stomach pains at night, but I never said anything to anyone. And those were the kind of things that I literally, if the pain was gone, it didn't exist. So I don't know how much of my traits were there, and they really bugged me, or I was really tired, or I was really feeling this or that, and I just somehow got through it, and then I literally put it out of my thoughts. So that's where I'm sort of going back into, this is a weird example. I'm wearing a necklace, Jerri. You can't see it, but it's one of those those oral stem. It looks like an Oreo cookie.
Cool.
I don't know if you've ever seen them. One of the things I have been allowing myself to do is, as I learn something about autism, it's like for self-stemming. During diagnosis, if they had said, "Do you self-stem?" I'd go, "No, you're crazy." And then I started to understand what stemming was, and I started to go, "Okay, well, I've been doing this. Is that a stem?" And then I'm starting to realize, yes, those were all stems. And one of the things I started to do is I've started acknowledging and letting myself feel what I'm thinking and feeling, and physically and mentally. I started to doing a lot more mouth with my lips and my fingers, and so I said, I'm just see what happens if I get something that I can actually sort of chew on, see if that sort of calms or whatever. And I got this Oreo cookie, and it is. Well, it's akin to the first time I ever rocked that I can remember as an adult rocking, other than like sitting in a chair or something. As I started thinking about it in terms of autism, when I first started rocking, I was like, immediately, it was like, this feels so good. This relieves.
Like energy put in the place that it needs to go to.
Yes.
It's almost like a vent.
Yes. Well, that's what this darn cookie does. I can
cookie vent.
I can bite on this. And this it's actually a great STEM toy because people think you're wearing an Oreo around your neck, and then they're like, I don't know what that is, but it's an Oreo, so we'll let it go, If it was an action figure, they might have some doubts about me. But anyway, this is just an example of the kind of things that I'm letting myself feel and do, and I'm finding out that there is a connection there. And these are the kind of things that we're all exploring, especially as late diagnosed, but I think even as individuals of all ages, because so little is known in the neurotypical community about what our needs are, that we don't even really know them.
Exactly.
so that this is that whole phase that we've got to go through as individuals and as a community, and we need the community to do this, just like Jerri and I are talking now about these things, and light bulbs are going off as we talk. But anyway, this is just an amazing topic. I hope people get a lot out of this. At least it starts people thinking, both in the neurotypical and, of course, definitely in the neurodiverse community. But
right.
This has been an hour already, Jerri. Do you know that?
That's amazing.
Isn't this? I know. I was in a time.
And see, that'll be another thing. I think when we get our own, if we find a way to accommodate the people who are like us, it will be a smaller space, definitely, than the neurotypical world takes up. But it would be such a blessing to have spaces, regardless of where they are, what they look like, spaces that we could occupy and support each other. So for the growth and the betterment of all of us.
Yes. I just want to
somewhere where we could find a way to to contribute and nurture ourselves and live in peace. I don't know how to explain it.
No, you're right on. You're right on. I was just going to make a note for the audience too, that every once in a while it's either I've got a cell phone that carries through, and I bought a new device that links right into the Bluetooth of the cell phone. She sounds really good, but every once in a while you're going to hear some sort of little breakup, and there was just been like one and a partial one during this whole hour, and but that's what that is. It's just it's a technical thing that I don't understand any more than that to explain it. But so you hear some weird sounds on Jerri's end. It could be her cellular connection. It could be the Bluetooth connection. A lot of technology going on here. Well, Jerri, I'm going to wrap it up just because, not that we are out of things to say, but because it takes about 10 hours to load this up to YouTube as it is. It seems like the longer they are, the longer they take. Well, I mean, that makes sense, but it seems like it's exponentially longer. Maybe it isn't. It just seems that way. But I think this was an amazing topic. I think this is a topic I'd like to sort of highlight with all my guests, actually, and that is the building of this community. It seems like I think we're sort of I've got a new focus here that not exclusively, but it's one I think that's worth staying on for an indefinite period of time. Oops. I think I lost Jerri. Yes, I did. Okay. Well, I didn't expect to wrap this show up this way, but that was Jerri Atkins, and she's out of South Carolina, I think she was, and great topic. I don't know what to say, but we need to, as a community, start talking. We need to start connecting, and please leave comments. I've got something going on locally called First Step, and I think it'd be a great idea to make that national on Meetup. And if that's an idea people want to share, leave a comment. I'll get in touch with you, and we'll develop things. So nationally, worldwide, this is something that needs to be done. And thank you, Jerri. I know you can't hear me. You'll hear it on the end of the program when I send it to you. And thank you all for joining us on Discovering Autism. This is Tom Geisler, and we will talk with you soon. Bye-bye.